What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel. Tonight's game against Brentford is the kind of game that will live long in the memory for so many different reasons. We're going to get through all of them. But following on from Monday night's demolition of Sheffield United, where we broke the record for becoming the first English team in football history to win 3 away games by 5 goals or more, confidence was pretty high. We knew that winning tonight would put us top of the table and put pressure on Liverpool and Man City. After all, they cannot both get full points. So the chance to take the advantage was right there in our hands. After Monday night's game, I did a video in which I said that we hadn't yet shown what champions show. We hadn't won from behind. We hadn't won in difficult circumstances. We'd been blowing teams away. And the question I had then was, does that make you champions? Can you maintain that kind of form? Is it reasonable to expect that Arsenal will just beat everyone 5 or 6-0? Liverpool had won on the Saturday with a really late goal. I think it was the 98th minute by Darwin Núñez. Exactly what you expect from champions with their backs against the wall. Manchester City had played in the Manchester Derby against Manchester United, and despite being a goal down for 2/3 of the match, had still somehow come back and won it. And that, for me, felt like proof that they were in the title race and they were serious contenders. That when the chips were down, they had enough about them, enough fight to get through it. And going into tonight's game, there were, of course, the questions around how would Ivan Toney perform? For so long considered the only player that we could sign to give us a realistic chance of a title this season. And let's not forget, we've only really just been recognised as being part of this 3-horse title race. Could be the most exciting Premier League run-in in history. So would Ivan Toney spoil the night? Would he score a hat-trick or a late winner? We knew that David Raya couldn't play against Brentford, and for all of the early season conversation around who was the better keeper, Ramsdale or Raya, Raya's kept 9 clean sheets and been so pivotal to the type of attacking football we play by being that sweeper keeper. And he's only had 4 shots on target to face in the last 5 games. So you would have been forgiven for thinking that almost anyone could play in goal. I did a video earlier in the day saying, look, Ramsdale's in, it's unlikely he could play so well that he would get his place back. But let's just hope he doesn't have a calamity in him. Well, we'll get to that. Listen, before we do anything else though, please do click like and subscribe if you haven't already. It makes such a difference to a channel this size. The first half wasn't quite as fluid as I'd hoped. We didn't seem to click and gel quite as I'd hoped we would. We didn't blow them away in the first 10 minutes like we have been doing. But when Declan Rice rose like a salmon to head home from Ben White's beautiful cross, everything calmed down a little bit. And the rest of the first half was Arsenal pressure, Arsenal dominance, but without it really paying off. And I was just reflecting on how at least this would be a game where the fans didn't file out before half-time, as we've become used to when we go away. When I noticed that the stands had started to clear. Look, I get it. If you're at a football match and you want a pint at half-time, you do have to leave just before the whistle so that you can get down there in front of the queue. But it was really dismaying to see the empty seats. And it was against the backdrop of those seats that Aaron Ramsdale had his calamitous moment. Pass back from Kivior that he could easily passed out to Saliba, but he chose to punt it long and took slightly too long on it. And it was clear that Brentford had targeted that. Visser running in on him and gets there just in time to put the ball in the back of the net. And it was a 1-1 at half-time. Felt almost like the game against Liverpool where we'd done so much good work and thrown it away. But this somehow felt different. And I think it felt different because, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one, you could feel it in the crowd in the Emirates. There was a tension about this. As Arsenal fans, we've had so many times like this where we play for long spells of a season really well and then inexplicably just can't finish a game off. A game that we should easily win. So half-time was a little bit tense, and I can only imagine what it must have been like in that dressing room. But apparently the players rallied round Aaron Ramsdale. I can't imagine how he would have felt. His one big opportunity. And an error like that, proving almost definitively, it seemed, that he isn't our number one. I remember thinking at half-time, this could very easily be the last time we see Ramsdale between the sticks. Because it's unlikely that Raya is going to lose his place to him now. And he's certainly not going to be playing in the Champions League. And you had to feel for him. Such a big character. So big a part of last season's success. Football is brutal at that level. Someone better comes along and you go. Just like happened to John Lukic when David Seaman was signed after we won the league in '89. Raya, for all the fact that he lacks the charisma of Ramsdale, seems to have supplanted him now. And I think after tonight's game, well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because coming out in the second half, you had that hope that we would put it to bed early, that we would take our chances. But as the game wore on, it just wasn't happening. There was a fantastic opportunity from a wonderful through ball by Jorginho for Kai Havertz. First touch was excellent. He tried to chip it over the keeper into the far right-hand corner. It just went wide. And it added to that feeling that maybe it wasn't going to be our day. The longer it went on without us being able to break them down, and then suddenly out of nowhere, Ivan Toney took one of the most audacious shots I've seen all season, probably for a couple of seasons. And had it not been for an incredible save by Aaron Ramsdale, they might have taken the lead. We did have our chances, but nothing particularly concrete. And a large part of our failure to score in this game came down to Brentford's shithousery and general gamesmanship, which is something new that really seen since Ivan Toney came back. And I'm not blaming Ivan Toney, by the way. I think Neil Maupay, who was on the bench, has been a far bigger culprit for it. But they took every opportunity to slow the pace of the game down, and we just couldn't get any momentum. And they went close again, but for another fantastic Ramsdale save from a Collins header, it would have been 2-1 again. Arteta made some changes, but he seemed hesitant to do it. And honestly, I just started to feel like it was going to be one of those games from last season. That this was, despite all of the evidence of the year so far, that we've changed and we've got a bit more steel to us, that we were going to collapse a little bit, that we weren't going to be able to really stand up and be counted when it mattered most. There were a couple of claims for penalty that we had. There was Trossard being literally pulled by the shoulder. There was a shirt pull on Gabriel. And then there was Kai Havertz, who went down in the area. And at first glance, it looked like it was a stonewall penalty. But when you saw the replay, you saw that there hadn't been any contact made. And given that he was already on a yellow card for flinging an arm out, he probably should have walked for that. And how different this game would have been if he had. In his press conference afterwards, this was the main focus Thomas Frank had. And the reason I have literally no sympathy for Thomas Frank and Brentford in general is because, well, last season when they came to the Emirates, they were given a goal which should have been offside. And in the press conference afterwards, this is what Thomas Frank had to say about it.
Offside. Yeah. It should have been disallowed. But you looked at it and you didn't care.
Yeah. I mean, I think every week there is VAR decisions that are going marginally one way or another. I agree that when they kick the ball, Ethan is in offside position. Then, as far as I know, the football law, then the next question is, did he influence that we could cross the ball across? They decided it was not enough. I agree.
Now, frankly, I think if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So the very fact that it was Kai Havertz who, again, wonderful cross from Ben Tan, Ben White, Benny Blanco, beautiful delivery. I mean, if he doesn't make the England squad this summer, it's a travesty. He is outstanding since the trip to Dubai. And Kai Havertz, bullet header, his fourth goal in 4 games, a winner. Will we remember this game for Aaron Ramsdale's calamitous mistake or Kai Havertz's last gasp winner? Will we remember it for exploding the narrative that Kai Havertz is a waste of money? Will we remember it for the fact that Ramsdale never played another game after this? Or will we remember it for the fact that somehow, just like champions do, when the chips were down, when it looked hopeless, when it looked like it was going to be one of those nights, the nervous, anxious tension of the Emirates exploded when he scored that goal. And it was wonderful. And Thomas Frank can bitch and complain all he likes about the fact that Kai Havertz shouldn't have been on the pitch. I think Paul Tierney in the VAR room, and that's another thing, by the way. How do you do such a bad job as a referee that they let you therefore go into the VAR room for the biggest game on a Saturday the following weekend? Something has got to be done about this. I'm not going to get into a VAR discussion. I've had enough of them. It just felt so incredible when Kai Havertz scored, because it felt like all of those games last season. I'm thinking of the Southampton game. I'm thinking of the Brighton game. I'm thinking of all those games where at 70 minutes you just think this isn't going to happen, and then it doesn't. That narrative, that all turned on that one goal. That one goal. More and more of us are starting to believe this is going to be our season. I'm sure that the Liverpool and Manchester City teams watching that would have been so disappointed. And of course, people have already started saying, you're gassed because you beat Brentford. Well, Man City only just narrowly beat Brentford at home, and I don't remember anyone saying that they shouldn't be celebrating it. I think we've got them rattled. And if people come out and say we over-celebrated, let them. I don't care. What I care about is that we're seeing the evolution of a team from last season who couldn't finish games like this off to one that's just won 8 games in a row, which is, by the way, the longest streak anyone in the Premier League has managed this season. 8 wins in a row, and our next game is Porto. And you probably couldn't have a better dress rehearsal for the Porto game, because Brentford did exactly what Porto did in Portugal. They stifled the game. They fell over at every opportunity. There were long periods for injuries that just seemed to come out of nowhere. I'm feeling incredibly confident about the Premier League, and I'm really looking forward to the game against Porto. I want to hear from you. How did you celebrate? Did you go absolutely crazy? Are you disappointed with the game? Do you think Aaron Ramsdale has a future at Arsenal? I want to take this last opportunity to say this. Aaron, if you're watching, stick it out. Aaron, if you're watching, stay. Football is funny. This time last year, you were the number one and there was no question you were going to remain it. Now it's David Raya. Who knows what could happen next season if we have silverware? Or even if we don't. Don't just go to a West Ham or a Crystal Palace or an Everton and be their number one keeper and never win anything. Stay and fight for your place. You got the character. We know you got the character. Still a young man. Might have the odd mistake in him, but I've got to say, those 2 saves today, it does make you think. What if he hadn't let in the stupid goal, but he had let in either one of the other 2, which you couldn't have blamed him for? So much about football is not clear and obvious. But one thing is clear and obvious to me tonight. I am absolutely thrilled with the result, and I'm sure you are as well. I'm going to enjoy a nice glass of wine, watch Match of the Day, and wake up tomorrow with a smile on my face as I watch Aston Villa beat Tottenham, Man City and Liverpool draw, or somehow both lose. Anyway, I want to hear from you. Until I see you tomorrow, be lucky and lots of love.